Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Friday, March the 5th, Pope Francis arrives in Iraq for a 4-day apostolic journey and urges authorities to rebuild society on fraternal solidarity.
Meeting the clergy in Baghdad, he invites them to sow seeds of reconciliation.
And we highlight the work of Catholic aid agencies in the war-ravaged nation. In the Vatican, I'm Linda Bordoni.
And I'm Father Benedict Mayaki. At 7:45 on Friday morning, Pope Francis and the papal entourage took off from Rome's Fiumicino Airport and left for his long-awaited 33rd apostolic visit abroad to the Middle Eastern nation of Iraq. Francesca Merlo tells us more.
The Pope's visit to the Middle Eastern nation and its people comes 20 years after Pope St. John Paul II was unable to undergo the planned journey and was forced to cancel his trip to the only country in the Holy Land never to be visited by a pope, until now. As the Pope set off, a little-known Shia militia group active in Iraq declared a unilateral temporary ceasefire to coincide with his visit. The Guardians of Blood Brigade announced in a statement that they would suspend every form of military operation during the visit of the Pope in respect of Imam al-Sistani and in the name of Arabic hospitality. Pope Francis will be travelling to Najaf on Saturday, where he will pay a courtesy visit to Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali al-Husayni al-Sistani, described as one of the leading spiritual leaders of Iraq's Shia Muslims. Known in Arabic as Saraya Awiliwa al-Dam, the group claimed the 16th of February rocket attack on a US-led coalition airbase in Erbil. Before leaving the Casa Santa Marta on Friday morning, Pope Francis met briefly with around a dozen Iraqi refugees living in Italy, accompanied by Cardinal Konrad Krajewski, the papal almoner. The refugees are assisted by the community of St. Egidio and the Auxilium Cooperative. Then, after a 5-hour-long flight, Pope Francis arrived in Iraq, where he was greeted by a group of religious and political authorities representing the many different realities of Iraq's diverse makeup, as well as a group of Iraqi citizens and 2 children with a posy of flowers for the Holy Father. I'm Francesca Merlo.
And the Pope's first official meeting in Iraq took place at Baghdad's presidential palace. That's where he addressed Iraqi authorities, the diplomatic corps, and representatives of civil society, entrepreneurs, and the world of culture. As Robin Gomes reports, he urged them to rebuild their society on the grounds of fraternal solidarity and coexistence.
E vengo come pellegrino di pace. In nome di Cristo, Principe della Pace.
Addressing the authorities, diplomats and representatives of civil society, Pope Francis said he was in Iraq as a pilgrim of peace in the name of Christ, the Prince of Peace. He noted that the disastrous effects of wars, terrorism and sectarian conflicts that have plagued the country have often been grounded in a fundamentalism incapable of accepting the peaceful coexistence of different ethnic and religious groups and different ideas and cultures. This brought about death, destruction and ruin, not only materially, but also caused heartbreaks and wounds, such as with the Yazidis, persecuted and killed for their religion.
Solo se riusciamo a guardarci tra noi, con le nostre differenze, come membri della stessa famiglia umana.
Speaking in Italian, Pope Francis said that only when we learn to look beyond our differences and see each other as members of the same human family, we will be able to begin an effective process of rebuilding and leave to future generations a better, more just and more humane world. He pointed out that the hallmark of Iraq's religious, cultural and ethnic diversity is an example to everyone, especially in the Middle East, that diversity, instead of giving rise to conflict, should lead to harmonious cooperation in the life of society. Fraternal coexistence, the Pope continued, calls for patient and honest dialogue, protected by justice and by respect for law, a difficult task that calls for the commitment of all.
Una società che porta l'impronta dell'unità fraterna è una società in cui i membri vivono tra loro in solidarietà.
The Holy Father said that a society that lives fraternal unity in solidarity with one another emerges better from a crisis. Solidarity, he pointed out, is a virtue that leads to concrete acts of care and service, with particular concern for the vulnerable and those most in need. I am Robin Gomes.
After addressing Iraqi authorities, the Pope met with bishops, clergy and religious in the Cathedral of Our Lady of Salvation in Baghdad. He stressed the importance of sowing seeds of reconciliation and fraternal coexistence that can lead to a rebirth of hope for everyone. Lydia O'Kane has more.
In 2010, 48 Christians, including women and children and 2 young priests, were killed in a terrorist attack at the Syro-Catholic Cathedral of Our Lady of Salvation in Baghdad. More than 10 years on from these horrific events, Pope Francis came to this place of worship on Friday, the first day of his apostolic visit to Iraq. There he met with bishops, clergy, religious, seminarians, catechists and lay leaders, noting that they were gathered in this Cathedral of Our Lady of Salvation, hallowed by the blood of our brothers and sisters who here paid the ultimate price of their fidelity to the Lord and His Church.
Cari sacerdoti, religiosi.
Addressing those present, the Pope told them never to lock down their apostolic zeal in the face of daily challenges, especially during this time of pandemic. We know how easy it is to be infected by the virus of discouragement that at times seems to spread all around us, he said. Yet the Lord has given us an effective vaccine against that nasty virus. It is the hope born of persevering prayer and daily fidelity to our apostolates.
Il cristiano infatti è chiamato a testimoniare l'amore di Cristo.
The Pope highlighted the hardships that so many Iraqi faithful have faced in recent decades. He spoke of the effects of war and persecution, the fragility of basic infrastructures and the ongoing struggle for economic and personal security that has frequently led to internal displacements and the migration of many people, including Christians, to other parts of the world. The love of Christ, said the Pope, summons us to set aside every kind of self-centeredness or competition. It impels us to universal communion and challenges us to form a community of brothers and sisters who accept and care for one another. How important is this witness of fraternal union in a world all too often fragmented and torn by division, he said. During his address, Pope Francis pointed out that at times misunderstandings can arise and we can experience certain tensions. These are the knots that hinder the weaving of fraternity, he commented. Yet these knots can be untied by grace, by a greater love. They can be loosened by the medicine of forgiveness and by fraternal dialogue, by patiently bearing one another's burdens and strengthening each other in moments of trial and difficulty. In a special word to his brother bishops, the Pope urged them to be particularly close to their priests. Concluding his address, the Pope told these brothers and sisters they were part of a long history that faithfully bears witness to God's never-failing promises as they strive to build a new future. May your witness, he said, matured through adversity and strengthened by the blood of martyrs, be a shining light in Iraq and beyond, in order to proclaim the greatness of the Lord and to make the spirit of this people rejoice in God our Saviour. I'm Lydia O'Kane.
Meanwhile, during the 5-hour trip to Iraq on Friday morning, Pope Francis greeted the journalists travelling with him aboard the Alitalia A330 airplane. He thanked those present for their work and their company. The director of the Holy See Press Office, Matteo Bruni, expressed everyone's excitement to be travelling again after a hiatus of 15 months due to coronavirus restrictions. Bruni also expressed gratitude to the Pope for allowing quite a few journalists to accompany him on the journey, something that he said was not to be taken for granted. He revealed that there were 74 journalists from 15 countries on board the papal flight.
As Pope Francis's apostolic journey is underway, Dalia K. Aziz tells Vatican News about ongoing preparatory efforts between church and state authorities to ensure a smooth visit.
There are many commissions that are responsible for these preparations, and these are selected by Cardinal Sacco. And each commission is responsible in one of the cities that the Pope will visit, also with the help of the government, the Iraqi government, of course. So we all, Christians and Muslims, are waiting for this visit, and I hope that everything will pass in a good way. Even though with the COVID and all these problems, we cannot move and do whatever that we wanted to do for him. But It will be something simple but good, and many people will follow the event on TV because everything will be closed at that moment because of the COVID. So it will be not easy to move, but it's okay. At least we have the Pope, let me say, the symbol of peace in our country, and I hope that it will be a good visit and will have good fruits for the future of this country.
Dalia Aziz there, speaking to Vatican Radio.
Pope Francis arrived in Iraq on Friday with a small delegation, including a humanitarian expert who assists Iraqis in helping people rebuild their lives and livelihoods after decades of war and suffering. Regina Lynch directs projects in the region for Aid to the Church in Need International and is representing ROACO, the umbrella grouping of Catholic aid agencies working to assist the Middle East and Eastern churches. Before boarding the papal plane, she spoke with Vatican News' Anne Prekel about her work and hopes for the journey.
The Holy Father is going to meet political representatives, leaders of other religions, of other faiths, representatives of the Christian churches and the people. And I personally feel for the ordinary Iraqi Christian, this must be such a fantastic moment, a moment of hope and consolation, I think, after everything they have suffered.
Pope Francis wants to encourage the Christians in Iraq in a very concrete way through his presence on the ground. What kind of Christian community does he currently find in Iraq? And what does the Christian community need most at the moment?
I think he will find, of course, a Christian community that has gotten smaller due to the different wars and especially after 2014 when they fled their villages with the arrival of ISIS. But I think he will find those who stay now are people who are ready to work for the future of their community and who will strive for reconciliation and for tolerance. It's not easy, perhaps, after everything that they have experienced. I think it was Cardinal Parolin said before, they can be artisans of peace in a country which is still very much in turmoil. And so to do that, they don't have to be numerically very strong, but I think if they are strong in their faith, this is something that they can really achieve.
And that was Regina Lynch, Project Director for Aid to the Church in Need.
Before we say goodbye, Vatican Radio and Vatican News will continue to provide exhaustive coverage of all the events during Pope Francis's apostolic visits to Iraq. On Saturday, he will travel by plane to the cities of Najaf and Nasiriyah in the south of the country. One highlight of the day will be his meeting with the Grand Ayatollah al-Sistani. On Sunday, we will follow him in the north as he meets with the Christian communities in Erbil, Mosul and Karakosh. This is the area most violently impacted by the so-called Islamic State between 2014 and 2017. Thousands of people were killed in those years and hundreds of thousands more were displaced. As Pope Francis himself has said, he travels to Iraq as a penitent pilgrim seeking reconciliation and fraternity. The Pope will travel back to the Vatican on Monday, the 8th of March.
That brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News.
For more on these and other stories and to hear this broadcast as a podcast, please be sure to visit our website portal at www.vaticannews.va. You can also catch the latest updates on our Facebook page or on Twitter.
Our thanks to Adriano Vitali in studio. I'm Linda Bordoni.
And I'm Father Benedict Mayaki.